welcome to Kate's Egg. Today we are straight cutting spring wheat and I am running the big header. My Uncle Chris is running my dad's combine and I'm running my combine. My dad had to go to town to get some parts. We should be finishing this 160-acre field and then we'll be moving on to the next one. We have 3 spring wheat fields. It's actually going super well. Some areas were really affected by sawfly and 30% of the crop is laying on the ground. Other areas are okay in the field. This is my first unload in the grain cart without anyone else in the combine, just my Kate's Egg tote. I am really watching the line of the field here. I keep the left side of my header right on the wheat. I usually leave about maybe half a foot though, so I don't skip any wheat if I make a wrong turn or look over here and miss something. I've been doing pretty good with the big headers. I've really been enjoying it actually. It's a lot more challenging, so I love that part of it. And I have never run a 35-foot header before. I've run a 30-foot. I haven't really noticed a difference though. The only difference with this combine is mostly kind of the buttons in this area here and the controls, which I got used to with the small pickup headers, which are only 16 feet long. So that was really great and I have a pretty good feeling for it now. It's almost noon, so almost lunchtime, which is exciting. I'm now making my corner, set my header down. The reel helps lay the wheat on the cutter bar, which then cuts it off and puts it on the belt, which moves it in, and then it will go to the inside of the combine where the wheat kernel will be separated from the chaff and straw. I have to look on the right and left side of my combine to see how high I'm cutting. You can't tell in the middle, but you also have to watch your cutter bar to make sure there's not any rocks or you're not stripping, which you can't tell if you're stripping down the middle, but you would be able to tell on the left or right side. And stripping just means you're not cutting off that part of wheat, so it's staying in a little line in the field, and that could mean you have dirt on your header, or it could mean you have a section broken, which is the little combine teeth that move back and forth like this. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've kind of got the hang of it, so I'm pretty excited about that. We are going to finish this field probably actually before lunch. We're just on the last maybe 2 passes. So pretty quickly. Well, actually it looks like lunch has arrived, so we'll see. We won't move the combines right now. We'll go to lunch and then move the combines after lunch. I'm very happy to be cutting spring wheat. Spring wheat and barley I've straight cut for the past 2 years, so I do have some experience with it, but we primarily run pickup headers, and actually this should have been swathed because of the sawfly problem. So that's something we're realizing now, but we didn't have anyone to swath it at the time. This is kind of what we're working with. We're having to run the headers in places a little bit lower than we'd like, and we're still not able to get the whole crop. The spring wheat was just really affected by the sawfly this year, and some years it is more than others. It all has to do with the timing of when you harvest it. The riper your crop, the more the sawfly will have affected it.
Darcy, you got a copy?
That's my grandpa asking if Darcy has a copy.
Go ahead. They want to know if you want to come over and give him some shade to block out the sun. Dean may have to do that. I'm waiting to get loaded here. 10-4-9-6-32-4.
Now I'm lining up with the next row. You definitely want to try...
You want your shade in the stubble or in the summer fall?
You definitely want to try and keep a straight line because it makes it hard on the next passes if you don't. And you also want to use the full length of your header and not have half of your header out of the wheat, because that would not be very efficient, and there's no point in having a 35-foot header if you don't use at least 34 feet of it. Oh no, we definitely won't finish this field before lunch. I forgot, we still have a little bit more wheat left, but we will definitely finish it in an hour or so after lunch. I'm making another turn now, and I will be dumping in the grain cart soon. My dad said this morning, please don't break the combine, Kate, and I've never had a breakdown before in combine, but big headers are a lot harder to run because they're so long if there's a hill in the field or if the field crowns. And what I mean by crowning is, oh, I almost had a skip there. What I mean by crowning is when the field is lower on both sides and higher on the top, you won't be able to cut the wheat on the left and right but you'll be scraping your header against the ground in the middle, so you could be filling your header with dirt, rocks, all kinds of things, and not even getting the weed on the other side. And with 35-foot headers, little areas in the field that you wouldn't think would be a problem, you definitely notice a lot more. For example, I would not be able to have an orange for a combine snack and peel it in one piece and take my hand off the steering wheel, because then the combine would start going whatever direction it liked, and there'd be a whole pattern in the wheat field that would not be very good. And if I need a drink of water, I usually just stop the combine, because it's best to stop and lose efficiency than wreck the combine and have it completely out for the day, or even longer maybe. So many hawks in the fields lately. It is really cool to watch. I am definitely feeling a bit tired from harvest, but that's just the way harvest is. You just have to get through it. I'm not going to unload in the grain cart this way. Well, I might. I'm going to wait to stop until he gets closer to me. Our grain cart driver has not had much experience dumping on the go with headers. I have dumped on the go with my 9610 Combine's header, and I don't think I would have a problem doing it with this one, but I am going to stop just to make sure that no accidents happen right now. I shut my header off too when I unload. He's going to be a little bit far away, but that's okay. I can adjust my auger a little bit with this button and move it back slightly, which makes it longer, and that's pretty nice when you're dumping and trying to fill the cart without moving back and forth with these long headers, although I also did move back and forth too. I did a little bit of both this time. I just turned my header back on and put it in rabbit speed. Now I'm back in the wheat, and I have to make sure I wait until my wheels on my header are completely off the ground before I turn, because if I don't, they will go different directions and could potentially break off, which would be very bad. Oh, a bit better. There we go. I like to make sure I get straight with the wheat swath, because you don't want to start out cutting wheat on a turn and then have to turn in and adjust. You want to line up straight to begin with. It just makes it easier on the next person too. The areas that are really affected by Sawfly, I have to put my header a lot closer to the ground, closer than I'm really actually comfortable with, but it's the only way to pick up that extra bit of wheat. So we're definitely going to finish this before lunch. I didn't know for sure what my Uncle Chris wanted to do, but I'll just come around and make another pass and it'll pretty much be done. We seeded really early, probably 1 to 2 weeks earlier than everyone else for spring wheat. You seed spring wheat in April, and then you seed winter wheat in the fall, so you don't get 2 crops. The only reason they have different names is because you seed them at different times of the year. But you harvest around the same time. Spring wheat you usually harvest after winter wheat, but very similar time for when you harvest them. It's not 2 crops at 2 different times of the year. You just plant them at different times. Because we got our seed in the ground so early, it got some moisture right after we planted it, and then that ended up really helping because of the drought, whereas I think a lot of the other spring wheat crops for other farmers who seeded a little bit later, they didn't turn out quite as well. Setting my header down right now, I make sure the wheels touch, and then the cutter bar is completely lowered before I go into the wheat. My arm's getting a little bit sore from this steering wheel, although I have been combining for quite a while now. There's a little tiny strip that my header is missing, and that's always super frustrating, because you think, gosh, why couldn't my header be 4 feet longer and I could have gotten that, but you just have to go back around and pick it up. You don't want to skip on this side to try and get this side, which I almost just did. So we are almost completely finished with this field. Uncle Chris is just grabbing that little piece right there.
Go empty in the grain cart, Kate.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Now I have to empty in the grain cart because we put our grain from different fields in separate bins, and that's how we keep track of how much grain came off of this field. So I want to make sure that my grain tank's completely empty and this grain is not counting towards a different field, because if you start doing that, then you really don't know what yields you actually got in a field and how much grain came from that field. which is really important in farming to know. I'm going to let my header clean out a little bit, and then I will shut the back off and the front. I'm going to put my auger out. It makes me a little bit nervous because I have not had to line this combine up yet with the grain cart, and it has a really long header. The end of my header is maybe 2 feet from the cart. It's close, so I have to be very, very careful. And I lined up perfectly. I cannot believe this. I'm super close, but I lined up absolutely perfect. I'm really glad that that happened. Put my auger back. That makes me nervous. I am close. I don't know what to do because I don't know if I turn away with this header, how it's gonna work. Oh, I don't like doing this at all. I am so close to hitting his header, it's incredible. All right, it looks like I've cleared it. Phew. Oh gosh, that was good. Now I'm going to go to lunch and park the combine and cool it down. Uncle Chris is lining up right now. He's a little bit far away. That was the better plan. Well, and Uncle Chris has a longer header by 2.5 feet on each side, but he also has a longer auger, and the auger might be longer than the additional feet on the header, so he doesn't have to get quite as close as I do. I'm going to drive over here to where the coulee is pretty much non-existent to cross. I was not looking at what direction the wind was going, so I think I'll just pull up straight here and I'll be good. I don't think it's too windy out today anyway.
We'll carry that little bit with us up on the hill.
So I parked the combine, now I'm idling it down and getting ready to go to lunch. I'm now shifting into 3rd gear. We just got back from lunch.
Don't run into my pickup getting out of there. What do you mean, Mark?
We are now roading to our next field. I made it. I took a little bit of a run though. We are roading the big headers down the road now, which is always interesting. I think we will have to drive on the highway a little bit. I almost drove off the road there. Oh, these ditches are pretty steep. I don't know that I'd get out of them, especially not in 3rd gear. All right, this will be a challenge with these little road signs. I'm going to have to pick my header completely up, be able to miss them, I think. A couple mailboxes, and I missed them. Oh, but there's a truck. There's a truck coming. I actually think my header will go over the reflectors. Oh, I almost hit it with the wheel. So I'm not having to weave because my header goes over the reflectors. Yep, just barely. It's a huge process moving all your equipment on the highway with the big headers. You've got 2 combines, a grain cart, a couple pickups to flag, semi-trucks. It's a lot. I think we're going up a field here to get to our other field so that we don't have to go on highway and the road anymore. We're trying not to drive on the straw rows right now because we left them in this field. The baler hasn't been over to bale them yet. Now we're going down a little bit of a steep hill, but I should be able to make it up in 3rd gear. I have to go kind of fast down it. I have to have the momentum. It's pretty fun though.
Do you want me to follow you guys down that road? Yeah, you can't get to the field otherwise. Just follow us.
Now we're back on a dirt road again. Well, we're going to be in a second here. Okay, I just put it in 2nd. I just put my combine in 2nd gear because we're going up some big hills and this header is so heavy, we just have to make sure we have the traction to get up them. Otherwise, we'd be able to do this no problem in 3rd.
Jay, can you see the white line that kind of zigzags hanging out along that road?
Yes, I think. We are just going to start in the wheat again. My dad is on top of this hill, putting his header down. Now I'm making my first pass in our new field. Here's an example of what Sawfly do. All of the wheat that's laying there on the ground is caused completely by Sawfly. There's a lot on the other side too. So that's a lot of the crop that's just absolutely laying on the ground. Really bad, but that's all due to Sawfly, and there's no possible way we could pick that up. That is probably 50% of the crop here, right where we're at. You can kind of tell by looking at it that it was affected by Sawfly, and that's why my dad wishes he had this field swathed. Here's the Sawfly again. That's just so much of the crop. Another area that was really affected by the Sawfly. So much of the crop is laying on the ground. You can kind of see how sparse it is. These little bugs on the window are called sawflies, and they're all over my window. And they are the reason that this crop is laying on the ground and that we're not going to be able to recover it all. My meter says 0 bushels per acre. That's why you have to swath before the sawflies get to it, and then you'll be okay. But this is just, it's sad because it's completely gone. I mean, this is most of the crop. I would say that's more than 50% of the crop on the ground. And I'm cutting as low as I can because my dad was taking the first pass of this field and he needs to dump in the grain cart.
Stay right there, probably.
He's cutting a circle in the field so that he will have some room because the grain cart can't drive off of the field. My dad just said 30% of this wheat is standing and the rest is on the ground. In my dad's row, you can see how it doesn't even hardly look like it's cut. It doesn't look like a stubble field usually would. That's because of all of the wheat that's laying on the ground from the sawfly. You can also see all of the sawflies on the window, but it doesn't even look like he cut there. There is a huge rock here that I have to lift my header up for. It's just ginormous. I don't know if you can see it. Wow, that would have been bad. Now that I'm past the rock, I set my header back down. I just got done unloading in the grain cart, so now I'm going to step outside the combine and show you how bad this sawfly damage really is. My dad thinks 80 to 90% of our crop is laying on the ground and unrecoverable. This is all of the wheat that's laying on the ground that we're not able to pick up. So this is the pass that my dad just cut, and then this is the pass that I'm about to cut. And if you see all this wheat laying here, sawflies lay their eggs in the stem of the wheat and then it starts to fall over. So you want to swath this wheat before that happens, and that's the only solution. There's no kind of spray or anything like that that can help this. So it's really bad. I mean, this is, everything is on the ground, and you can see how sparse this crop looks and how it doesn't even look like stubble on this part. It's really bad. My dad said it's almost not worthwhile cutting. We're getting 0 bushels per acre. So that's like nothing. It probably costs more to run the combines alone on this field than we'll be able to make back. I hope that gave you a better idea of why we swath our wheat and why it's so critical here in Montana and the big issue we have with sawflies. Here some are right now. Some fields you'll see a lot more of them than others. This button moves my reel in and out. So that's out, as you can see. And then this is in, this is down, and then this is up. So this is a button that we don't use on the pickup headers. This button will lift my header up and put it down. And then this is header tilt, which doesn't work on my combine. This is the auger in and out button. This is button number 2, which sets my header on the ground when I have the header engaged. That's something different about the big headers, is it won't move unless you have your header engaged, which the pickup header, the header will move up and down without it engaged. So I engage the header, press button number 2, and it lowers it to the ground to a height I set with this button. So if I take it this way, it moves it down more, and spin it to the right, it will move it up more. And then whenever I press button number 2, it will go to the height I set over here. So it's called a floating header. That's why it does that. And then button number 1 picks it up to a height that I also set with this button. And it lifts my wheels all the way off the ground so I can make lots of turns. So to start my combine, back up from my dump on the go and my little excursion outside, I will make sure it's in turtle speed, put the back on, then turn the header on, wait till it engages, and then hit the rabbit speed button. Hit button number 2 to drop my header back on the ground. I make sure I wait until the wheels are touching and it's lowered completely. Then I'll move my hydrostat forward a little bit, go into the wheat. If I need to make adjustments, I can do that. But this is how I manually raise my header up and down. And if I press this button, then my float header disengages. So I'll have to press button. If I press down 1, then it won't be on the float that I set it on. So I'll have to press 2 again to re-engage that. That was a little bit of an explanation of what my buttons do. As you can see, the wheat is pretty much non-existent right here. My meter says 0 bushels per acre, and mine is usually half of what Dad's says, and Dad's also says 0 bushels per acre. So there's not anything here. I shouldn't say there isn't anything here because there are 3, 4, 5, 6 hawks over there in the field. So that's really cool. Usually you would be able to look out the window and see the rows that are cut. But now all you just see is a bunch of wheat laying on the ground. You can't even see the definition of the rows. It is absolutely crazy. All right, I'm just lining up to my straight pass of wheat. There is no wheat in this field. It's crazy. The last one was doing nearly 60 bushels per acre in some parts. I'm going to dump on the go this time. So this will be my first dump on the go of the year with big headers, and my first ever dump on the go with the 35-foot header. So I have to be careful. I'm going to slow down a little bit, pick my header up for this massive rock, and we'll see. He has to get pretty close to me, so I'm sure our cart driver's nervous too. As Uncle Chris put it yesterday, now I can breathe when the dump's over. There is no room for air here, so you really have to be careful. He has to come in a little bit, but I'm sure he doesn't want to because it's scary. Moving my auger a little bit with my button and controlling the load in the cart with my speed. So you are witnessing my first unload on the go with the grain cart and a 35-foot combine header. It takes a long time to fill up in this field because there's no grain in it, practically. I think we've cut over probably half the field and we've dumped maybe 3 times. And this is a 160-acre field. So that was super successful. I didn't wreck the grain cart or my header. I would say that was just wonderful. Here are all the hawks. It's really crazy. Our cart driver counted 12. My dad counted 9. These are the types of conversations we have on the radio. Where hawk feathers are, how many hawks in the field there are, whether there's a porcupine in the field, how many deer are in the field, the cute baby deer we see in the field. It's really cool. Now I am going to line my combine up with my dad's combine and park.
Are you turning left? Your blinkers on.
Oh, I had no idea. Thank you. My dad and I now parked and we're about to go to dinner. I'm just cooling my combine down. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe to learn more about how your food gets to your table. You can follow Kate's Egg on Instagram, KATES_AG, and on Facebook, Pinterest, TikTok, everywhere else, and you can visit the Kate's Egg website, KATESAG.com. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!